Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You see, that's your fault, you know. Because you pointed to me about 3 times. Huh?
Your voice was too high. You had to drop it down.
Oh, my voice was too high. Did you hear that, Rogan Smith? Mm-hmm. He is now directing the pitch of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
So if I start, good evening, then no, it's unacceptable.
So he brought it down.
Drop it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, he brought it down, right?
When you say bring it down, what do you mean? Too much volume?
The pitch was high, so you had to make an adjustment.
Not the decibel. Okay. I was too excited. Is that it? Okay. So he's now directing the naturalness.
That's the producer and him.
The naturalness.
To make sure it's consistent.
So that ain't sound good. So I got to go.
There you go, Ken. I called him R.M. Bailey today with this shirt. I like your shirt, though, Kendrick.
Well, we used to call that Highbury High. And you know what we used to call it? But you know what we used to call Highbury High? Kentucky.
I've heard that.
Okay.
And why is that?
Because Kentucky Fried Chicken at the time used to have stripes.
Yeah. Oh my God. I even forgot about that.
Do you remember excuse me. Can you bring down the pitch?
Was my pitch too high?
Turn the mic down, man, until she get the pitch together. Okay?
I'm gonna talk like this from now on.
Yeah.
Does that sound better?
Yeah.
Does my voice sound good like that? Does my voice sound better?
Mm-hmm.
No. Kendrick's like, no. How y'all doing?
Good.
Today was a good day. Very busy but productive, at least for me. I know about y'all. Feels.
It was
what
very
are you doing?
productive. I'm doing. You know what I'm doing? I'm in a crisis management.
What is that thing that he called us?
No, but I'm actually working.
No, but what's the word you used?
I
was working too.
Okay, well this is good. Okay.
What's it called?
Yeah.
Fubbing.
Fubbing. F-U.
But
yeah.
you see, but you see the hypocrisy, right?
It's not the hypocrisy. We're not perfect.
Pardon?
I said we're not perfect. No one's perfect.
No, but the fact of the matter is,
you can bring it to my attention. I don't mind.
The fact of the matter is, when I did it, you'd say, you know what? Let me just stop. I'm just gonna wait for you to finish doing that.
Okay, well then you want to stop until I'm done. Okay, stop because I got to do this.
No, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to punish the listeners who
no, but you already
told
me in another second. You know, you told me, right?
What?
Because I petty.
Yes.
So I would expect that you would just say.
But only when it affects you directly, not when it affects our listeners.
No, you petty. Period.
No, man.
It's PP.
Petty. Period.
Yeah.
Petty LaBelle. Petty LaBelle.
Yeah, you could be petty, man.
Yeah.
We'll be all petty.
I just want to say.
Petty. So what's in the headlines?
I could be stink when I'm ready.
Yeah.
Man.
Let's talk about the Sands again. You want to do that?
We can talk about the Sands. I want to talk about this young boy that was gunned down when we done. But you go right ahead.
The Sands again. You know, again, I'm not talking about the Sands issue.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to talk about, and we've had them all here on both sides. Okay, so again, those of you who are listening, you know that we have been fair. We are always fair because we say it about both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you just line up on both sides?
Pardon? Why didn't you what?
In other words, first it was, they have a corruption bill going on, or some
Wipe
prosecutors.
Your lip. That's bothering me. Yes,
you have a production, what do you call it? A prosecutor saying it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
All the people on one side, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Then you have the thing with Sands.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible
mm-hmm.
on one side.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, well, to be fair, everyone, it's good.
It's good. Mm-hmm.
Okay? No one steps out of that box. My advice, I given my advice to our guest who is going to be here on the 26th, Chester.
Oh.
Don't go down that road.
Yeah, you said that. That's the.
That's my advice to him, man.
Yeah.
That's going to carry him far. That's going to carry him far. Don't go down that road because it's predictable. It's almost so predictable. This is how it works. I assume that there is a very small segment of middle of the road people who see this. And by the way, I think I almost consider myself to be middle of the road, believe it or not, when it comes to doing this. Okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, I vote one way, but, because you have to vote one way at the end of the day. But when I do this, I try to be objective and fair. And the point that I've been making, I made it on the other side. I said it against the FNM when the PLP was in power. Why is it always just no?
Yeah. I can't take you seriously when that's the first thing that's the only thing that comes out of your mouth. I respect you more when you show some balance and you can say, you know what, that was a good job, or we appreciate this, and then you could go back to criticizing something that's valid.
Or even
later on.
In the particular issue, there's some good pieces and some bad pieces.
But it's never.
But it's just all stink.
I find that to be people in general. I'll tell you why. I have a friend. This is so unrelated, right? But I have a friend who will not congratulate. Who would not congratulate? Let's just say Kendrick did something great, but Kendrick is not this person's favorite person, okay? She will not call Kendrick and say, or send an email to Kendrick, or even if she sees him in public says, she wouldn't say, Kendrick, you did a great job. Mm-hmm. You could win an Academy Award, and she will not say, Kendrick, you did a great job. She'll just say, no, I'll never say that to him. No, just never will.
Never.
Whereas I might not like a person, but I'll be able to say, Kendrick, you know what, congratulations on, and mean it, because it don't take anything off of me to say it. I don't get it.
No.
I don't understand why people are that way.
Because you see, then you're diminished. You're wrong. You failed. They won. You lost.
But it's stupid.
It's not a win and loss thing.
It's a silly thing to do.
And you know what happens? What's even worse is when it's obvious. Like when you go, the sky is blue. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It isn't. Not blue. It's azure. Okay.
Yeah.
Now they nitpicking.
Yeah.
Okay, because no one goes around with azure.
No, nobody.
Okay.
Maybe a designer who has to break down.
You might throw a little sky blue or powder blue.
Powder blue.
Yeah, but no azure.
Royal blue.
Okay. So we've got to just get past that. That's the thing that I noticed. So to me, I dismiss it. You see, the thing is, you don't. Okay. Now, let's examine that particular issue with Mr. Sands. And, of course, there are people out there, but he related to Tommy and he related to... yeah, fine. Okay, I'm dismissing you because you're not willing to listen.
But you're giving full disclosure.
Yeah, I'm giving disclosure. Mm-hmm. But, so if you want to factor that in, fine, good, you win, and you're on that side. So I'm giving free medical service. So let's analyze that. Let's non-politically analyze that.
People
You're a
from both
minister.
sides going to benefit.
What's that? Huh?
And I'm saying anybody can benefit from his services.
You're a
not just
minister. Let's move away from Dr. Sands. You're a lawyer. Let's say you're a lawyer. Okay? And check this out. Many of them, the lawyerocracies, what do we call it? The lawyerocracy. Many of them are lawyers, right? So you think that when their constituent come to them and say, Mr. James, okay, I trying to go down to court because they tell me I ain't do this and I ain't do that. What you think? Well, no, you need to perhaps
go to someone else.
No, they don't do that. No, they tell them how to do it. They say, you would need to get a summons and they get summons. So in other words, they give them advice.
That's my sarcasm in saying they can tell them, no, you need to go to someone else because I can't offer you that advice.
Yeah, it's conflict.
Yeah, that's my point.
Right. Even though you ain't paying me.
They're going to tell them, obviously.
Of course they're going to say go down and to the thing. Or maybe let's say Dr. Minnis, the PM, maybe one of his constituents say, I have this burl
on the
back
of
my ear, back of my ear right there. What you think?
He's a gynecologist.
Will you need to lance that? No, but he's a doctor. Will you need to lance that? Oh no. But sorry, I couldn't tell you that. I'm sorry. Sorry. No, take that back. You'll need to go to someone else to tell you.
But you also understand that there's a difference between medical advice and actually performing a medical service.
I agree.
So let's make the distinction.
But let's say in the legal case, that's actually giving a legal service if you give advice, because that's what lawyers do, right? So in this case, and also doctors, by the way, doctors giving advice can be actual practice. Go home and rest. That's a thing. That's advice. Go home and rest. People pay for that. You go to the doctor. Oh, all you need is some rest. Your blood sugar low or something low. Now, in this case, he's performing surgery.
Yeah, so it would be the case of a lawyer going to court and defending someone or drawing up some documents or something like that.
Yeah, but many lawyers don't go to court. They just give advice. They can give legal advice, and they can get paid for it. You can go into a lawyer's office, and they don't give you a piece of paper or go to court, and they charge you.
Understood. But what I'm saying is, if it were a case, I wonder if there would be big to do if it were just a case of Dr. Sands giving advice, medical advice, versus actually doing the surgeries. I don't have a problem with him doing them, and I've said that 1,000 times.
That to me is one of those fine lines, right? But the bottom line is, and this is a key word, it's free.
Ain't nobody paying for it, and the people who need it benefiting.
It's free.
And we don't have a lot of doctors to do it.
So what I would suggest to people is this, and this is my good friend. He's my good friend and neighbor, Bradley Roberts. Let's say Dr. Sands is the only person who, can do medical, whatever that is he does.
What is it, thoracic?
And it's free. Well, not a problem, because we want to be pure. So I'm giving this advice on the radio today. We need to be pure. And because even though there's someone, remember I told you to tell you about free gold? Remember
Yes,
that analogy
I
I used to tell you about that?
Yeah.
If you get free, go online, get enough? Okay. This is my advice then. Because and I feel very, very firm on this. Because it would be conflict and because it would be unethical, please go to Bradley Roberts. Get some money from him to go to the States to get the surgery. Or die. You see what I'm saying? That's your options. You don't want to be unethical.
No,
So die or go to Bradley. He'll help you out.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's, because conflict, he's concerned about conflict, and he don't want any conflict, so he'll pay for it.
Yeah.
That's a simple thing.
It'll never happen.
That's a simple thing.
It'll never happen.
Is my voice too high? Bring it down. Okay. That's a simple thing.
Yeah. Oh, my
We'll
God.
be right back, and we'll talk about your thing.
This 15-year-old.
All right. Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. How are you doing, Rogan Smith?
Good and not good.
Uh-huh. Why is that?
Good because it's been a good day, but not good because I have to read this headline story with this 15-year-old who was gunned down, and then read the subsequent story of his parents saying that the father especially warning education officials that the son would die in a certain school, and just having those pleas fall on deaf ears. Have you read that story?
I have read the story. Yeah.
I mean, and at first I didn't believe it. I should say I couldn't believe it until I had a conversation with someone today who highlighted the fact that this has happened before, and in this individual's family, where the parents went to education officials and said that, they were concerned about the child's safety, and those pleas were met with deaf ears, and then, tragedy strikes. That concerns the crap out of me. I mean, obviously this young man, the father said, he was a good kid, but, he had his strong-headed ways, and, but at the end of the day, I think, and I want us to have somebody from the Ministry of Education come on and address this, because I can't understand a parent going to the school, if this indeed happened, and expressing a concern and nothing happening. I understand that schools are filled to capacity in some instances, and they try to keep you confined to the areas where you go to school, where you live. But if I'm saying Ed Fields, I feel like my child is going to die in this school, I don't want to hear you say, toughen up.
Toughen up. Now, of course, we will be very cautious for libel purposes.
Absolutely. If that is in fact the case. So
in a generic scenario, yeah. And you see the situation I just explained to you. It's. I tell you, you and I, we have our pre and post discussions, before the show, and I tell you, man, imagine if the human element did the right thing all the time. Okay? So, for instance, someone comes into an environment and says, Rogan is in your school or in your place of employment. There's a rift between Rogan and this other party. And I believe, and I know that you have 2 or 3 branches, and I believe that if you don't move Rogan out of this branch, this could end up in a scenario that could be detrimental to everyone. And then one day the person comes into the branch and then riddles a whole bunch of people in an effort to get you. How do you live with that? I'm dealing with a situation now where dogs have been loose and dogs have been mauled and maimed. And the owner of the dog has been warned. They have gone to the police and said to the police, you need to deal with this dog. And someone is able to stop the dog from being dealt with. So what happens then now is, this is what I want to know. The owner of the dog, okay, and there is a specific dog that did maul someone, so this is not a general statement to all persons who had dogs on the loose. The owner of this dog that mauled and killed another dog, and the department that is responsible for that, having not acted, if that person then that dog then, say, maimed a child, what is in their mind?
Or maybe they just don't care.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe they just don't care. But even just going back to this story with this Anthony Smith, I think, and like I said, I do hope that at some time in the future, very near future, we do have someone from the Ministry of Education on our show who can really speak to this, because this is a very worrisome scenario. I had a coworker. It's a worry. It worries me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a coworker who said that she spoke to the principal of a public school recently, and he said, "I have 3 kids from 3 gangs in my school. Can you imagine what I go through basically every day, having to keep these kids separated?" But when you have a scenario, again, if this is indeed the case, where this parent went to the Ministry of Education or spoke to somebody in education and said, "My kid is going to die in this environment," we have to figure out a solution. We have to figure something out. My niece goes to a government school, and I know that they try to keep the kids as close to wherever they live as possible. You know what I mean? So I know that that isn't indeed the case, but I just can't shake this feeling. And this gentleman who's quoted in the Tribune today, he says this is only kid.
Right.
This is only child that you're watching slip away before you.
Now, having said that,
me.
It's also very important, and this is where I feel it's so very important to do this. We are obviously getting that one side. I'm not saying it's not the right side. It could be 1,000% right. But it's also important for us at this point to highlight that of course, we're hearing that particular version of the story.
Absolutely. But you know what took it to the next level for me was hearing a story today from someone who I do hold in high regard and who I do trust, saying this happened in my family and spelling out every single thing that happened.
Yeah, and the reason I say one side is not because I'm not saying that is not true, but what are the ramifications of that? Because let's assume let's go to the worst case scenario. Let's assume this is a very common complaint. Then the question is, how do you handle it?
Well, we need to figure out a way to handle it.
Because if, let's suppose, this is regard 60 students. I mean, I'm going to the other extreme now, right? Suppose, 60 students are being, impacted this way. And by the way, the toughen up thing, if that happened,
they didn't say those words. I'm saying those words.
Okay.
I'm saying those words.
So I don't know what transpired in the reaction to that complaint or that concern. But the reality is, if you have, and I'm just throwing this out here, and we're not here to pick sides. If you have gangs going on, and the reality is there are 2 warring gangs in the same school, okay? And let's just say it could be hundreds of people involved, right? How do you transfer hundreds? It's a messy situation.
Well, we're going to have to figure it out.
Very messy situation.
It is a messy situation. Nobody's saying it's an easy fix, but it's something that they have to give consideration to and try to fix it moving forward.
What we have to fix is why people in gangs. Because I give you an example. I have a gate. I'm not going to get into it. I have a mechanical piece of equipment that is not functioning at my house. So the person has taken the piece of equipment and they are going to fix it. Okay? So I called them up today and I said, listen, I understand that that's broken. I get that. But have you determined why it's broken? I said, why it's broken is because this particular thing is happening. I know it's happening. I can see it's happening. So you need to fix that. Otherwise, you're going to bring that back, put it in, and it's going to happen to them again. And they said to me, oh, yeah, you have a point there. So we have to get to the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is people are in gangs.
You know something? If I'm a good kid, and all I want to do is go to school to learn, I want to make my family proud. But every single day I go to school, somebody picks on me, hits my book bag, poking me in my ear, kicking me, doing whatever, threatening me, taking my shoes, doing whatever. At some point, that individual will break, and that individual will want to assimilate with people who are like him, who will protect him and defend him
again
or her, and that's what happens in a lot of scenarios.
Again, I saw something. You bring this up. I saw something on SVU last night, and this girl was gang raped in a fraternity scenario or something like that. Anyway, to make a long story short, at the end, Liv went to the school to talk, and this girl opened up. She came on the stage with Liv and opened up. And Liv did something that actually brought a shock to me, even though it's TV. She said, I want everyone to close their eyes. And everyone closed their eyes. And she says, now what I want you to do is, all those who have ever been picked on or bullied, stand up. People stood up. All those who have ever been the subject of violence, stand up. All those who may have been victim of a sexual assault or molestation, stand up. And she went down a whole list of negative impact things. more than 65% of the people was standing up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how ubiquitous this thing is.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're dealing with each individual issues. It's not that one kid who's being bullied that's the problem. It's bullying that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that one person who was raped that's the problem and how we dealt with that situation. It's why are we having situations of sexual violence and sexual molestation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an underlying problem that needs to be prevented so that person doesn't have to go to school and deal with that.
Yeah.
And maybe one of those things is as soon as that person is bullied, maybe there's a zero tolerance. Okay, you want to be a bully? You're out.
Yeah, and they don't.
No.
For like if you well, I guess they could put them in the boys.
No, out.
Yeah.
Just stay home. Because maybe there's a cool off period that you have to. Maybe it's like you want to. You go home.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel that you have understood the ramifications of this, you come back. And if you come back again and you do it again, you stay home for good. Maybe there has to be something.
It has to be something.
Yeah, you can't. I can't be exposed to you. I can't talk to you. Talking isn't any good.
No, it's
okay?
not.
Because ain't nothing happen with a talk.
Boy.
Okay, so you stay home, and we'll make sure that you're not exposed to any of our people.
First of all, I just have to say my condolences to that family. I mean, like, we see murders happening every day. We see it happening with young kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't know why this one just really resonated with me. I think it was probably hearing the father's side of the story that really resonated with me. But, the media gets criticized a lot. But I wish, like, in hindsight, like, if that were the case. And we're still assuming that this actually occurred, that he went and he complained to education officials. But I wish he had just come public with his story, like, and to tell people that, my kid is in danger and nobody's listening to me. I just wish. Hindsight being 2020,
It's a sad thing, and the thing about ramifications. I said to someone the other day, I was really trying to think about this, is you should always pause before you react to something, because once the reaction happens, there's no rewind.
How do you undo the floodgates being opened?
There's no rewind. And so when these things happen, and for instance, each of these things require individual analysis. Like, for instance, how many times did the parent complain?
Mm-hmm.
If it was numerous times, and you go, okay, so why is this being ignored? If it was one time, you kind of like, okay, they did complain to me. I said, well, I'll check into. Not excusable, but okay. But if it's repeated,
mm-hmm.
you go, okay. When are you, as a responsible leader or whatever it is, take some action?
Mm-hmm.
Because someone's just not saying this for fun.
No.
Because even complaining is a problem. Once you complain, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You become victim to say he's a punk.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but you know what I can't understand? So the school system is set up so you have to go to a specific school. You can't just go to another school?
I think they try to streamline. No, as I understand it, they try to streamline it so that the kids within a certain area attend a certain school. I guess it just makes it easier rather than having to, you in the west and having to go in the east somewhere.
But if you say, okay, and I guess because it's free, that's why you don't have much choice. So if you decide, okay, well, I live right by Doris Johnson, but I want to send my child to, say, Fox Hill Primary. I'm just, it's not the same thing. It's apples and apples. But Sandilands High.
No,
you can't just do it.
I don't believe you can do that, and I think
they ask you where you live.
Yeah, they ask you where you live, and what happens a lot is the families, if they like, for example, some people say C.R. Walker is one of the better schools, so they will get a relative to say, okay, can I put your address on the application form, and then, okay, now they're in this area, Blue Hills, so they can come to your school. You know what I mean? So you have people who will lie because they want their kids to have a better chance at a better school.
I'll tell you what's sad, it's really concerning, and the average one of us, a lot of us don't have to deal with this, and so we're detached from it, is how this thing goes on and on. So, for instance, you see how these situations like in Fox and other places develop, right? Well, they're developing from school.
Absolutely.
It just continues on.
Absolutely.
It just continues on.
You're absolutely right. It's the breeding ground.
So and that's immensely scary. You use the word worrisome, right? But it's almost like one of those things that makes you like a gut check, right? It's immensely like frightening that you could be living in that environment all the time. That's life, you know.
I would not want to be in that scenario. I really wouldn't. I give my condolences to the family.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
All right, well, we're going to do the news. Our guest this afternoon is going to be Mr. Damian Gomez, and we'll have an interesting conversation with him. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. Our guest this afternoon, and he'll be here shortly, is Damian Gomez. We're going to talk to Damian about a couple of things. Of course, we'll talk to him about his vying for chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. I understand Mr. Mitchell is also vying for that now. Okay, so
I see.
Yeah.
I see, says the blind man.
Anyway, it's okay. Because I'm just, because you know why? Let me tell you why. You always have the choice,
Of?
The switch can be on or off. You always, from 1 to 10, you can turn it down to 1, or you can mute. You can mute.
When is this convention?
I don't know. It's soon.
Is it November?
But I think it's October.
This
I think this month. Yeah.
I know it's November.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong on this.
No, you might be right. Let me see.
And then we'll also talk to him. We had this issue. I'm not going to get into the direct concern issue. Is this table, issue with no, it's my chair, and I'm not shaking the table. I'm not near the table.
I meant to say the chair, and that creaking is sounds.
Well, it is what it is.
Very sexual.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, sexual. No, this is not going like this. Is not sexual.
First of all, you weren't doing it like that.
I can't even do it like this because I can't do that, that movement.
Well, that right there.
See, because just a slow-mo.
Oh, October 22nd to 25th.
So anyway, what was I? Oh, the issue of contempt of court and libel, this thing with Chrissy Love in this case. So I wanted to get, the timing might be a little off, but I wanted to get Damian's
take on that.
As a practitioner of, you'd want this.
Can you hear that, Kendra? He's most annoying, isn't he?
I'm not most annoying. There are people more annoying.
No, there aren't.
There are. Well, there are, and one of them is sitting in this room, and it ain't Ken. The issue of libel and contempt. What is that? Is that a layover from because we're challenging things now.
Yeah.
If you remember, we had what do you call it? The privilege.
Parliamentary privilege.
Yeah. No one thought that was challengeable. Okay. But the reality is it is, and because apparently it doesn't even exist in England anymore. We still got stuff going on here that don't exist where we got it from, I
want to even talk to him from a media person perspective. Like sometimes you'll see in the newspaper, like they're covering court cases, right? Yeah. And then people will say, well, you can't discuss it. Okay, but if it's already reported in the paper what happened, you can't discuss it. To what extent can you discuss it?
Well, they don't. Yeah. So my knowledge is that, for instance, when someone is accused of something, first of all, you can't say anything until they're charged.
No. That's correct.
Right. Then the next thing is if they say Rogan Smith is alleged to have committed rape, because you're freaky that way. Is alleged to commit.
Not to do it against someone's will, though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, you hear that again. She's into consensual stuff. So
yes,
anyway,
aren't you?
if not forcible, but anyway,
then it's not
forcible, consensual. Yeah.
No.
FC.
Not.
So anyway, so the reality is you can't say you can't talk about the case, and you know what?
But the case is reported. I'm talking about.
Well, you can talk about what's reported, but you can't draw any kind of conclusions.
So all I can do is basically read this.
Right.
That's
no. Let me tell you why. Look at what happens in the United States.
My paper is
remember. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember back this far. You remember a thing called Court TV?
Yes, I do.
And Court
how
TV
it would sway people's opinions.
Court TV was like the first, like with O.J. and Ted Kennedy Smith. Remember him? Ted Kennedy Smith. He was the guy who was accused of raping Palmdale. It was someone Kennedy Smith. It wasn't Ted Kennedy. It was someone Kennedy Smith. He was one of the relatives of Ted Kennedy. Anyway, the bottom line is, by the time, what's her name? Nancy Grace finished with you.
Well, you're already guilty.
You can no jury pure after that. She has then concluded, well, why is it then if he is not guilty, does his eyes look that way? So now every jury is sitting there looking at my boy eyes. Okay? Yeah. Nancy said his eyes that way. So now as a defendant, I have to go like this.
And now you look crazy.
Keep my eye.
Yeah, you did it.
But you see, so I actually feel that there's a fine line, not even so much of a fine line, a very strong line between getting a jury, because I don't like no jury no way, but getting a jury of my peers who is not contaminated.
But let me tell you something. You think those people ain't contaminated anyway, even in the absence of a Nancy Grace or a Nancy Grace type? Those individuals come right back into society, and they have family members who are following the case, and they speak about the case, even though they're sworn not to.
Yeah, but first of all, many jurors are sequestered. So remember that now. So that's why they have sequestering. Sequestering sounds like a horse thing. Sequestering. Okay, because they don't want you to expose. You're not allowed to read newspapers. You're not allowed to watch the TV.
Good luck with that.
No, but the point is, the point is they're trying not to do it, Rogan. I'm saying, as opposed to the United States. Oh yeah, let me tell you what's wrong with them, Mr. Juror. You see that pink thing on his shirt? That's a sign of criminality. Okay. So now you got to worry about what you're wearing. So I think that's why I don't like the jury system. I told you what I believe in.
You're interested in a
pool of your peers? A pool of my peers?
Yeah.
I tell you, I've been on the jury. The boy says, listen, man, you got to be guilty because, if he wasn't guilty, what are you doing there?
That's his logic. Every time you say that, I get upset.
Another one said, this happened twice.
My voice.
Guilty? Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened last week. Last month I get robbed, so this one can pay. Did you see how he looked? He looked like a criminal.
And then you have individuals who are just so tired of being on that jury pool. I mean, to being on the jury, they're just tired. Sometimes these cases, they're drawn out for weeks and months.
And what's sad is that they're tired and they will weigh in the favor of being guilty. See, I don't want to be anywhere near Gully determining me.
Now you have to come on the side. Okay. Now I'm having a conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation with him. He's been here before. Has he lost his mind?
Come. Just come right to that door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell him I said as he lost his mind.
He said it's nice to be welcome this way. And we're talking to you on the air.
On the air. I asked him if he's lost his mind. Okay.
He's coming up.
Yeah. So the question is, right? The question is I don't think that this jury thing is the thing. And this is another thing where we have an institution, right, that has been going on from the beginning of time. It's like imagine how long the thing with the witches was going on. Oh, well, here's how that works. If she drowns, she wasn't a witch. You know what I mean, Ken? You know about that, right? How they used to judge witches?
So
they would put you on a chair, tie you down, dunk you with a big rock. If you float to the top, you're a witch. Which didn't even make sense to me, right? It should be if you float to the top, you're not a witch. But there you go. If you drown, you're not a witch.
So, okay, you prove she wasn't a witch, but she's dead.
Sorry, she obviously wasn't a witch. I mean, this is the lunacy of mankind. Okay? And these people here, these types with the bib, they're partially to blame for it. Because, they're smarter than everyone else. Okay, yeah, okay. They're smarter. This is mine. This is yours, yeah. Yeah. You're being very unshowy. Anyway, so, okay, yeah.
I'm doing what you do on the show. Now you're seeing it.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I don't mind. The fact that I can say you're being unshowy is fine.
Okay.
But the thing is human beings are so flawed.
Yes.
That I really don't want to be subjugated or subjected to anything that they have to do that impacts me.
Damien, he trust your neighbors?
He ain't trusting the jury. He ain't on that run.
He don't want to be tried by no peers.
Let me ask him, do you want to be tried?
He's a manipulator of the peers.
So he'll hire a manipulator of the peers.
It's all a show. It's all a show. You know how they have Shakespeare in Paradise? This Shakespeare in the Supreme Court.
What's your view on the jury?
My view of it is that juries are completely unaccountable. There's no way. I've done matters before juries, and I've gone away from court feeling that I lost that, and they come back with an acquittal.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
And then I've gone away thinking I won that.
Yeah.
And I've got you got a conviction. You're there.
But people don't realize.
But I think Surburton Hall.
Yep.
I love
Mr.
Surburton.
Peanut Man.
Made the point that judges, when they give decisions, have to actually give reasons. The only institution that can make you or break you in a real way
Is a jury.
In a jury trial is a jury,
Yeah.
and they don't give
No,
any decision.
I just feel like that. See, let me ask you a question, and this is what
That's
I tell
scary.
you about deterrence, okay? And people don't realize the various levels of deterrence. They think like going to jail is a deterrent, and no. You know what a deterrent for me? A jury. I don't do no crime because I don't want to appear between no jury.
The Lord's Prayer actually says it.
What does it say?
Save me from the time of trial.
That's in the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah.
What section
Where?
that in?
When you do
That's verse 2, eh?
Heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. No, we
thy
do
will
the
be
prayer.
done. And then you go and save me from the time of trial.
I
don't know
never
about
hear
that.
that
Where you
part.
get that
That's
from?
what
That's
Give us
that's
our
like
daily
a,
bread.
that's like a subversion.
No, you go into it. It is there.
Yeah. See, this is what they do. I have said the Lord's Prayer
A million
many
times.
times,
I never heard that
and I've
part.
never heard. I don't even know where that fits in. And what? Now we're going to go through the whole prayer. You know that. Okay. What how it started? I don't remember the start.
Our Father
who art in heaven,
heaven.
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done
On earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread,
and
forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
And lead us not into temptation, but
and deliver us from evil. Amen.
No, for thine is the
Kingdom.
kingdom, the power,
That's the other version.
In the new version.
Oh, now you come with the new.
No. In the new version.
Oh, save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. Shall I hear this version?
When that started, 1998?
No, that's been around now.
This is
for 20
contemporary.
Hey, Sue, right that.
This is contemporary.
That
Right
comes
here.
from Francis.
Yeah.
That comes from John Paul or something like that. That come from Jesus.
Save us from
I'm
the time
not
of
Catholic,
trial.
so-
But save us from trial.
And deliver us from evil. For
Well-
the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours now and forever.
Yeah, but I don't think he meant it like that. They didn't do no jury in them days.
Well,
They just put you in the front of the road and stone you.
I just going to say they just stone you.
That was a militant crew
He
back there.
schooled me
But no,
today.
seriously, Damien Gomez, and our guest this afternoon is former Attorney General Damien Gomez, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. But would you see you in the system? Okay? You in the system. And let me tell you who I know afraid of the system the most.
The people
in the system.
system.
Damien Gomez, yes or no, would you like to be tried by a jury of your peers?
no.
Okay.
And
why?
No, look. I had a really close friend who was a senior lawyer here, senior to me. And he says, Damien, if I ever get locked up and you get me bailed,
I gone.
I'm gone.
I'm gone. That's
Really?
me too. Yeah, I gone. No, I am gone. See, I know.
Where you going?
I gone. Wherever it is, I'm not going there. I'm going over here. Okay?
So,
I can't.
No, but this is what.
Because first of all, a lawyer, they might say, yeah, who you think he is?
That's a whole part of it. But it is really that juries can be completely irrational.
Absolutely.
And they don't have to account as to what is the basis of it.
Yeah. Give me the injection, man. Just ask me.
No, but I'm saying is.
So what's the option if you don't do juries? Because I know judges, but they can be whacked out too.
In Europe, you don't have juries.
You have
you have
judges?
3 judges, and they give a reasoned decision. They either agree
Right.
with what, but they
Based on
accept
law.
the evidence, and they tell you what evidence they have accepted, and then what flows legally from that factual matrix that they have given reasons as to why they.
Okay, let's have a little history lesson. When the juries, because the only juries I've used to saying is Ludgate Bonanza, but where the juries first arrived?
No, but juries
Go back a long ways, right?
It comes out in the medieval period,
Yeah.
and
But they were stacked.
no, but look,
You ain't lying.
it was an improvement on. I'm going to push your head underwater, and if you drown,
You're not a witch.
you're not a witch or you're not guilty. You know, if you drown, you're guilty. If you survive it, but it's not that big an advancement.
No. Because you'd have all the king, like, you know, in the Inquisition days, right?
Well, look,
And you had the jury of the peers of the priests. You're guilty, Jack. Once you get caught, because that was where you're guilty until proven innocent, right?
But look, to start with, you don't know who you've offended. And
That's
group
correct.
Of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have passed them that morning going into court and didn't say good morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who do you think he is? Yeah, I get him now.
Or maybe several years ago.
Or several
you
years
his
ago
path.
you did something,
Yeah.
and they don't say anything to anybody.
No.
And you don't even know they know.
And you don't know, but you, more importantly, don't know that you've actually interacted with them. So you're not even able to give your attorney information that
Exactly.
enables him to say, well,
challenge
this
that juror.
person shouldn't be on the jury.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Me and him at the same gap.
You know.
You're so silly.
No, but you might laugh at that, but that might be something, you know.
Oh, Jesus.
See,
This
and
is
that's
scary.
why.
I laugh at a scary
But this
thing.
is why I keep on telling y'all, and I keep on encouraging people to not accept convention. Just because we've had a jury system for so long doesn't mean that it's the right way.
So let me ask him, do you think it should be done away with, or is there some validity in keeping a jury around? Surely you've had some discussions with your colleagues.
Well, you're asking me something which is a personal view.
Yeah.
Do a Burton Hall on us.
No, I think Burton Hall had a point. Or Sir Burton Hall.
Mm-hmm. So Burton Hall.
But I've been before some judges who,
they're a little off the rocker.
you know, I may have a better chance with the jury.
But,
in
in the European system, you have three judges.
No, but they
so
have a
it
panel
balances
of
out.
three,
Right.
and they have to give at least one ruling or three separate rulings if they don't agree, or two rulings if there's a majority decision.
And it's based on a basis that you could argue against on appeal.
Yeah. But that's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Because you give reasons, it means that if there is an appellate system, that the appellate system is able to.
Plus, if you, in the case what you're talking about, if you had a judge who you had issues with, you could say this judge needs to recuse himself because I've had issues with him.
No, generally speaking, it's not that the lawyer has a problem with the judge, you know.
Okay.
Judges are quirky.
Yeah.
So, and there's a whole school of thought. There's the Scandinavian school of thought is that you learn your judge. So if your judge has idiosyncrasies, you cater to those, or you avoid.
Well, as
problems.
you know,
but the point that I make is that once you accept that human beings are, at the end of the day, human beings,
just go. Just take the advice. You just say what your friends say.
Just
and just go. We back to the go
back to
again.
square one.
No, I've always said, I told you this many times on the air, if I get so much as believe I'm going to get picked up,
You're gone.
I'm gone, because I don't want to get trapped and not be. I don't want to have to rely on getting bail.
Well, then it's a presumption of guilt automatically.
I don't care.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, because I think there's a presumption of guilt, but they pick you up. Okay, all right. So I'm not. So someone, they coming for you. Let me tell you, but I don't even want to tell you because then
Don't
people
call
go
me,
there
'cause
looking
I want to come.
Okay, but something like Odyssey, I could be around there. Now the thing is, so I just think that it is just ultra concerning, especially when it comes to profiling. We have people in this town who, once you got that little puff, you know,
Or the plat, or the single plat.
That's it.
My
Your
hair
target.
my hair is short.
Yeah,
so
but you could get a puff, just grow some out and then shave the rest.
No, I'm not going to make myself a target.
There you go. Even he knows.
He knows.
You know
So
that.
I don't want to be in that mode. But listen, let's do a little segue. But that is it is concerning. And as a progressive society, Damian Gomez, and I'm being very serious.
I would
here.
have no problem with moving to a rational system where judges actually just hear it, give reasons,
All right.
and those reasons can be taken on appeal. If there's a basis for those reasons, the appeal is dismissed. If there's no basis, then the appeal
And
is
especially
denied.
in a society where we have a small jury pool, and not to mention, and I'm going to say it, a jury pool who I don't know how, we in the D- realm. So I can just leave it at that. Now, that segue. Recently, and I know you had a specific involvement in it, so I'm not going to get into it. We saw a case of contempt of court. And as journalists, as people on, in the media, there's this line we're always balancing between with what is libel, what is contempt, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing I want to ask, because again, we seem to be having different standards between, say, the British standard and the U.S. standard. Mm-hmm. This issue of libel and contempt, is our standard updated? I tend to believe that it has more validity than the U.S. standard, because I think they're just way out. But is it outdated that we need to adjust these rules, that we shouldn't be fair to say, well, that judge has got to be out of their mind?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they can call me in. And,
before the...
Well, first of all, the 63 Constitution of the Bahama Islands required the government to do a schedule of laws that were required to be saved. That is to say, they would survive the
transition,
the Bill of Rights provisions in the 63 Constitution, which included the right to freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
We never did any scheduling. So there's a real live issue as to whether any of this has survived the 63 Constitution. And that hasn't yet been raised in this context.
So you're saying that we didn't write down that we should even keep that law?
That's the point. And if we didn't,
so I have to say it that way. You into the whole survival scheduling. We didn't keep that law.
We may not have kept it.
Okay.
And that is something that has to be decided. That's a real live constitutional issue.
So that's technical, right?
You may say it's technical, but it's substantive in the sense that if you have a right to freedom of expression,
right,
how is it that the courts
can
suppress that
above my freedom of saying something's wrong with you?
Right.
Where it was not specifically
it was not excluded.
Scheduled.
It was not scheduled. Right. So that's a substantive argument.
Okay. Why has that not been challenged, or has it been? We're just not aware of it.
But we haven't yet done it. We've done it in relation to the death penalty, and that's the significance of it's Bo and somebody else versus the Queen. And in that issue was dealt with by the Privy Council.
So that would have been retro? I mean...
No, it's not retroactive. What they're saying is this, and this is the argument. Because the issue of whether the death penalty was mandatory or whether it was subject to judicial discretion was something that had not been saved.
And therefore?
Therefore, it is not mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the ratio of that case. That's what that decision is about. It's not mandatory because of that. Now,
could you have gone even further and say you can't even have the death penalty?
No, because
you didn't save having the death penalty either.
No, what they're saying is you could have it, but it can't be mandatory. The judge must have the discretion to give it.
But you see what I'm saying, though, right?
I see what you're saying, but I want to stay on the point that you asked me.
Right.
Now, the whole rationale behind that decision was that there was a provision requiring certain things to be done in order to save laws that would have been inconsistent with the Bill of Rights. And we did nothing.
Which is not surprising.
Well, that's the Bahamian way, but I'm just saying.
We ain't get to that yet.
We did nothing. So the issue now is, how does that affect
case law?
Your right to freedom of speech?
Right.
And if you have an untrammeled right to freedom of expression, why is it that you can't say of a judge
made a bad decision.
Something that you know? And there are some decisions that have been made without reference to that argument.
Uh-huh.
There's a decision by Mr. Justice Georges outside of the Bahamas, where he took the position that judges are public functionaries and are not immune from criticism.
That's my thing.
And that is really where, this is where the freedom of expression, libel divide, contempt divide sort of arises. Okay. Because if you take the position that I'm entitled not to scandalize the judge.
Right.
Because that's defamation. That's
because
basic.
That's something else.
Yeah.
That's why if I
say I don't like you.
I can't say I don't like your decision.
No, but I can say I don't like you.
No, but I'm saying
you.
It's just something as mundane as that the judge could take offense that I say I don't like her.
But that doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm just saying.
But I agree with you on that.
Yeah. What about the decision?
But if you say this decision is a bad decision, why can't you say that? You're a taxpayer,
right?
And these are public functions.
Exactly.
All right.
Now you may be wrong if the judge is right, but what is so contemptuous of saying of a public servant, I don't agree with what you did.
Exactly.
All right, we got to take a break. Oh, I got to make a call, and we'll be right back.
I was enjoying it. Welcome back to Ed Fields Live. I'm Rogan Smith. I'm sitting here with former Attorney General Damian Gomez, attorney. Ed had to step out for a minute, but he'll be right back. He's putting out some fires. But we were having a conversation about libel, Mr. Gomez, and the public's right, if you will, to criticize judges. And we were having a very interesting conversation off air where you were saying, making a personal attack against a judge is one thing. Saying Kendrick, for example, is a thief or he's a sweetheart is one thing. But your personal view, again, when it comes to the public saying, I don't agree with the decision of a judge. I mean, if you could just expand upon that.
Well, I think that the public is entitled to say a judgment is badly reasoned.
Mm-hmm.
It is illogical. It doesn't make any sense. It may contradict itself in any different manner of ways. And those are arguments that are often raised on appeal. And no one says on appeal, well, you're contemptuous of the court.
Right.
So,
very valid point.
Why is it that cannot be done in public? A person may say that. They may be unable to pay for an appeal. But they have freedom of speech, and they don't have to pay for expressing themselves. Why can't they express themselves in that sort of measured way?
Well, you see so many Bahamians are gripped by fear of saying anything. I mean, it happened even with the media. Like, I remember Wendell Jones, for example, was saying, man, what is this thing that I can't even criticize a judge's ruling, But
I think that is the real mischief and the real problem that is confronting journalism at present. You ought to be able to say, look, I read your ruling.
Yes.
You've said X, you said Y, and then you've contradicted X and Y by saying A, B, and C. And you've made a conclusion which is inconsistent with X and Y, A, B, and C. What am I supposed to do with this? Why did you do this? And And that's really how academics in law make their living.
That's how they function.
Let me ask you, I'm going to call his name. Many years ago, a jurist, that's what you call judges, right?
Well, not necessarily. A jurist is a person.
Tell me what a judge. Forget it. I won't be trying to be smart alecky. A judge. An appeals court judge accused or challenged a local journalist with contempt. And it was a scare tactic. It wasn't like, you know, they didn't actually charge him. It was like, if you do that again, and of course, you know.
Of course the media backs off.
It was Alison Lowe, in fact, if you remember her.
Really? Yes, I do.
And so I was incensed, and I said, you know what? I was on a morning show. I said, I challenge that judge to call me in contempt. I think that's a stupid thing they did. Okay? And then another famous judge
called you.
called me, Manny Asadabe. I'm calling his name. He doesn't mind. And he actually sent me some case law out of Trinidad. I should have brought it, which basically disputed that whole premise.
But this is the point that I'm making.
Yeah.
We live in the 21st century. This idea that a couple of people with wigs on could sit somewhere.
As a matter of fact, they still have wigs.
And say, if you dare to say this, I'm going to send you to jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm making it known to judges out there, I don't give a damn what you say about me.
No, but I'm not saying that.
I'm saying it.
I'm saying practice, but
I'm saying it.
I'm
you don't have to say it.
I'm merely saying that we live in a different age.
Era,
And even in England,
it's
there is an acceptance that public officials are accountable to the public, and therefore the acceptance of criticism.
It's the way it is.
They can't be immune
is
to
a way
it.
of life, and
it's no stodginess.
But there's a difference between criticism, which is measured,
right,
and you scandalizing the office that they hold,
or the individual,
So you
very clear line.
There's a very clear line, and once those lines are not crossed, there's no issue.
That's it.
I'm going to ask him this really quick question. So this an article in today's paper says jury sees video footage of brutal murders, right? And this is a question that comes up with the media a lot. Okay, so we can report on what happened in court. Now, for people like me and Ed who are talk show hosts, we want to discuss this because it's a sub judice. All we can do is repeat these same facts as were printed.
Well, once you repeat accurately what has been said in court, you're not afoul of the provisions.
But we can't draw any conclusions.
But you shouldn't draw conclusions because those are the issues that the jury
because it could prejudice the jury.
It could prejudice the jury. You have an influence over people who listen to you.
Yeah.
But and again, I just say this. I ask this question because they're detailing, for example, and I won't go into it, how somebody died. So if I'm having a reaction to the way this person died, even that is a problem.
It might be. I don't know what the facts of the actual matter are.
Let me give you an example.
The danger in our system is this. The juries do not say what motivates them. They don't give any explanation of not guilty or guilty. So, quite frankly, we really don't know. Now, you could be influencing them because a couple of them could be listening to you. I like Rogan Smith.
Yeah.
She's a sensible lady. Yeah. She makes sense.
And I didn't realize that point before.
And I never really thought about this, but she got a real point.
Now, so now I'm the lawyer.
The lawyer has never raised this.
So all of a sudden you're a lawyer now.
But all of a sudden you have an impact which has not been ventilated.
Understood.
Correct.
In the court proceedings.
Right. So you don't have a chance to rebut it.
So no. Well, the defendant is there. Who's Rogan Smith? I didn't hear this.
You didn't even know. You didn't even know they heard about Rogan Smith.
So that's why.
Understood.
The law circumvents conversations on that. Now, if you have a panel of judges who are required to give reasoned decisions.
They would have to put that out there.
If they raise the point which you have discussed on air that they heard, and they did not give the opportunity to counsel to address that with them, it would become evident in their proceedings because they would give their reasons. Counsel say, well,
where does come from?
Where does come from?
Yeah, Rogan Smith.
Where does come from?
Yeah, and she's a problem.
V-E-Y.
And then at that point, there's an issue on appeal.
Understood.
And that really is the justification
that's
really
for
what Sir Burton was suggesting about moving towards a judge-driven system.
And that's why the U.S. system is just so wide, where they try you on TV. You know, in a talk show like this, they would try the person on the show.
You look at their awards.
Yeah.
You know, person gets $1 billion in damage. You know, So who's going to pay that?
But it's an example I have to bring up because I promised my good friend Obi I'd bring it up. But where, you know, there's this totally unlike, but I'm going to use this as an example. There's a ship off of Long Island, okay, that ran aground.
Yes, I saw.
Now, he read an article in the newspaper today where the ship, they say, was headed to Anguilla from Trinidad. Okay?
How to get there.
But so if this was a court case, we'll go, something wrong with that captain. Okay? Okay?
Yeah.
How do you get from Trinidad, which is way south of us,
way down there,
past Anguilla to get to be stranded in the Bahamas? We need to check that captain out. He must be on drugs. So now, you know, that jury is listening there. You know what? I didn't even realize the geography of Trinidad versus Anguilla. I thought that was maybe on the same parallel line or something. But Ed just said Trinidad is south, Anguilla is south, and Long Island way north. Yeah, that captain, he had to be on drugs. Yeah, that's a good point because the judge, because Damien ain't bring that up. So that's an example. That's how I managed to fit my friend because he wanted me to say that on the air.
Shout out to Obi.
Now we got to segue because I think we made very clear lines on libel. I mean, and I think the reason we wanted people to hear it because it's very clear for the hearing.
Look, the court has a function to play in our system of government. And judges are not allowed to defend themselves in public. They're not allowed to make public statements outside of the functions that they perform.
So that's a mechanism of protection.
And the only protection that they have against scurrilous attacks is to summon you before them and to actually hear you on the issue of whether and you're given an opportunity to apologize. And you move on. Pay your fine and go. Well, they may not find you.
They may not find you.
You know, it might be a small technical matter, or it might be more sinister. But that is the mechanism by which it's done.
We're going to go when we come back. We're now going to get into Mr. Damien Gomez.
Yes.
And his other career other than officer of the court. Another officer. We'll get into that in a bit. All right. Very serious. We're back here in Intervention Week, Ed Fields Live, and our guest this afternoon is Damio. That's a combination between Damien and Gomeo. You know, everyone like to call Gomez Gomeo. Okay, you know that's your name from now on, though. Damio QC. So the former governor, the former Attorney General. It's some of the general in it.
You need intervention.
Okay, see that's sweet now. Listen, man. In all seriousness, you are putting yourself forward for chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We'll see you later. Listen, man. I got to ask you a question because as a person who has really thought hard about going into the political arena, why? See, you answered me yes. Now you got the long answer, the essay answer. Yes. Why?
Well, I'm still trying to think of a suitable reason for my wife.
Okay. Okay.
No. I've been involved in public life for quite a long while now. I've been actively in frontline politics from 1997. I am still young enough to count myself within the younger group of the PLP, and old enough not to be seen as a neophyte. And I think that we need to modernize the party in fundamental ways that make the party acceptable to younger people, relevant in technology and how we communicate. We also ought to be listening more to the aspiration of people who feel that they're not heard. Not many people have that ability to be that voice for this group that is critical to the success of the party. And I think that someone like me is able to help this group of people. And one of the things that I found as a member of Parliament was that making yourself redundant might be viewed as being a difficult thing to do. But that's really your responsibility. You've got to empower people to enable them to take over from you. And that means you've got to position yourself to move on.
Well, you're a facilitator, right? In the true sense of the word, not only from facilitating for the future for succession, but actually to facilitate the desires, the policies, the hopes of the people who have elected you, as opposed to you are it.
But that's the point. And I think that I offer a characteristic that we really need at this moment.
I want to ask you a question, because if you're elected as chairman of the party, you'd be following behind Mr. Bradley Roberts. Your temperament is completely different from Bradley Roberts' temperament, completely different. And there are people in the party who have sort of gotten accustomed to that big, kind of bold, in-your-face type chairmanship. You're completely different from that. Do you think that's something the party could adjust to?
Yes, we've had.
We've had Brainard Rigby, and we've had other people before.
We've had other people before.
But following him.
We are going into a period of introspection, and following that introspection, a lot of activity. We've really got to radically reform our branches. We've got to include people in meaningful ways. And we need not to bully people, but to encourage them. And that's really the tone of where we are. I'm willing to be that person. And I'm hopeful that whoever wins, if it isn't me, has that tone, because that is the only way that we will be able to get back.
Get back,
the support that we need.
I can say something off to you, but I can say that to you now.
But we've got to modernize.
Right, I agree.
And we have to speak to the aspirations of people who right now don't see any hope.
When you know, because there's the thing about hope and you know this thing about the nightmare you're living in,
No, but I'm not talking about
No. So I want to find out. I'm laying to a statement I want to make, and that is this: is not the challenge in terms of reforming the PLP, and I'm being specific about the PLP, not just any general party, but the PLP, is to attract people who, whatever the label is that the PLP now has, whatever that is, so that people who are opposed to that label or feel that label is negative or off-putting, to be able to get a diversity of people into the party that people feel, you know what, I'm going to use this word. I hate to use it, but
comfortable.
I'm not comfortable, or I don't feel like I want to be identified with that group of people.
Well, we're a big tent, and in a big tent, you're going to find people who you don't like. You're going to find people who you like, and you can find people who you love. You've got to be tolerant of the people who you don't like, knowing that there are enough people in this tent that you could be comfortable being part of it.
No, but that's not the question I'm asking. So let me be very clear.
You're talking about for the members of the public who are looking into the party.
Because even you talked about succession, right? Which means you have to have new flow of blood. Okay, it's not just the same people. Okay, there are people. Let's be frank, who feel that the PLP's brand is a certain brand that is not a negative, that is a negative, not well thought of brand,
and they don't want to be
affiliated with that, right? And that's their feeling. I'm not saying that's real, but that's their feeling. What therefore can you do as chairman to negate that, so anyone from any ilk could say, you know what, I'm dealing more with ideology now. I'm not worried about being branded a certain way.
There are certain things that you have to take as a given. If a person is opposed to our ideology, they're not going to vote for us. You have to accept that. We can't be all things to all people. If you are that, then you are.
Let me be frank. Let me be basic. People believe the PLP is corrupt. That's a brand. I'm not stating that. I'm saying that's what's out there. That's a brand. There's a whole bunch of people who feel that way, more so than they feel of the party. That's just a simple thing. Now, how do you eliminate that? That's the question I'm asking. I'm not talking about whether one's conservative, one's liberal. That's the different stuff. People aren't embarrassed about ideologies, but they're embarrassed about things like that.
Well, how do you eliminate a view that we are corrupt? Well, you elect people to the offices of the party that are openly honest people.
Is there, and again, this is touchy because I'm not here to accuse anyone of anything, but is there a kind of, I think, acknowledgement that there may have been issues, or do you just carte blanche dispel that there have been issues of, say, malfeasance or mismanagement? Let's use mismanagement as if that's a lot more of mismanagement, gross mismanagement. Do people, or you just ignore that and say that never is the case? That's not the case with us.
No,
how do you grow from that?
No, well, you don't by denying. If there has been mismanagement, you need to acknowledge that. We probably need a system of public awareness where we go into the public, we have public hearings, so people are able to say publicly
what their feelings are.
That you injured me in this way, and we acknowledge it. Okay. We deal with it in that fashion, and we move on. Okay. It's like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Right.
And I have no personal problem with it. It's something that is necessary. Right. But you have to move on, and you have to deal with what you meet in that environment. Because, people will say things that you then have to put policies in place as a party to address, to ensure that they don't ever happen again.
We got 2 minutes, so there's two quick, tiny things I want to. So, A, how do we deal with this just opposition for the opposition's sake thing? And two, how do we get to the point where we start looking at professionalizing as opposed to politicizing politics, and whether it's the PLP, the FNM, I'm just but you're going for chairmanship, so I'm saying, would you see yourself as being able to do something like that, where when we see a piece of policy that's on the table, it's just not an automatic no. Let's analyze it, let's look at what's good, what's bad, let's discuss it, let's offer suggestions like the repeal and replace. The Republicans for 7 years said this is no good, but they had nothing else to replace it.
Let's look at the recent DPP legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Sears and I have both said that we support an independent director of public prosecutions.
Right.
The government promoted an independent director of public prosecutions.
Right.
But the bill that's been presented to Parliament starts off by saying that the Attorney General shall have the authority to run the AG's office, and he shall give directions, and the DPP must follow the directions of the Attorney General. Well, where are we? I'm saying to you that why even bother with that? Because we've not moved from the position that
was existing.
No, but we've moved away from an election promise to the status quo.
Right. It's not independent.
And it can be independent because if
once you get discretion of
it's now more insidious because the Attorney General can direct the DPP to issue a nollie. The DPP issues the nollie. And when people start to question why the nollie was issued, the AG says the DPP did it.
Okay.
So how are we ever to get to the bottom of these things?
We literally have 2 seconds, and I'm going to say, and I haven't read it because people don't read, but including me.
I was going to say including me.
But for instance, that's how things should be enunciated, as opposed to this sucks.
Right.
And I don't know if I've seen that analysis, as opposed to this is no good. I'm not saying it isn't there.
But I'm saying to you that I'm saying that, but this is how I operate.
Proceed, right.
I'm not one who generalizes.
Yeah.
If I have a criticism, I tell you what it is. And I'll refer to the specifics in the legislation and say, well, how are you moving?
Okay.
If you say you're doing something, and this is completely contrary to what you say you're doing, what is the justification for your activity?
Well, Mr. Damian Gomez, Damio, as we know, as we now know you to be. Good luck. When is this thing? When is this election?
22nd,
well, we start with the prayer breakfast on Sunday morning.
Okay. When is the election? Breakfast. I don't care about the prayer breakfast. Because the only one who could be praying there is you. When is the election?
From evil.
Yeah. And trials. When is the election?
That should be Tuesday.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you that Mrs. Glennis Hanna promised us on air that win, lose, or draw, she's coming on here right after the election. So you have to come on right after that win, lose, or draw.
Well, I have no problem with it. And
there you go.
I love Glennis.
We have lots to talk about. So
decent human being, and I think that
my old classmate. She wanted me to take her to the prom.
No, she
didn't.
Denied that. No, she did not.
No, that's what she said.
She had a date.
This is one case, and I know we're going off. You know where they say no is no, no mean yes.
No.
In this case.
All
right, thank you very much, Damon Gomez and Rogan Smith and Kendrick Williams. We'll see you on Thursday. Monday. Our guest is Mr. McCoy. I forget his first name. He's from, the school, Anatole Rogers. We'll be talking about education. We'll be right back.